Now, with the rising cases of bad debts, Nigeria's Bad Bank, the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, says it is not increasing its current debt liabilities. It's becoming increasingly challenging to service its 5 trillion naira worth of debt. So says the managing director of AMCON, Mr. Ahmed Kuru. What does this mean going forward for the economy? Oji Udemezwe, who is a financial and management consultant, joins me now on the program to talk about this. So good morning to you.
Good
and thank
morning,
you for coming
Harriet.
on the show.
Thank you very much, Harriet. It's my pleasure.
So, if the Bad Bank has said that we cannot take any more bad loans because we already have 5 trillion naira worth of debts to service, what's the implication of that?
The implication is simple. You carry your cross. You bear your burden. You deal with your issues. There is no free meal anywhere. Even the one they have taken so far, somebody someday will pay for those unrecovered debts. It's either, because they are going to raise bonds, raise funds to be able to finance, those assets that they buy. If they can't recover those debts ultimately, and maybe they also, realize collateral and all of that, and it's not enough to fund those bad debts, somebody has to pay. Maybe government will eventually, take that burden because it's a bank fully supported by government in the model we're running in Nigeria. So the point is that, they are saying that they cannot purchase more. It's only proper because, while that initiative was taken at a very appropriate time, was a very good, economic, stabilization, policy in the heat of the financial crisis. It was a nice thing that we did. Many other countries also told that line. So Nigeria wasn't an exception. It was proper at the point it was done to save the financial system from crumbling, to protect the depositors' funds, to curb high level of unemployment, and to manage the poverty that was coming upon this nation.
But then the dynamics have not changed. All right, even as it is now, it's worse off than when AMCON was actually initially formed. So the dynamics have not changed.
Yeah,
and
you can
why
say
would things
we had a
be
financial
different?
crisis then that affected the whole world. Today, things are not basically different. In fact, the global economy is also now so threatened to the extent that some economists are already predicting recession for the global economy. China is, slowing down seriously. U.S. has its own challenges, even though it's getting a little better. Nigerian growth has, slumped as low as 2.8%. So the challenges we have right now are somewhat similar to what we faced last year. If you look at the key sectors that, presented the risks that we faced, they were oil and gas sector, then in 2008, and also the margin facility, the stock market, bullish trading and speculative tendencies, okay? And then the general economy, that's general commerce, business were not also doing well because of the problem they faced. Today, it's also the same thing. The only thing you will say is that the stock market has gone down. So the shock we are seeing there is not just happening. It's been there for the past 2 years. So, but the oil and gas sector is seeing another round of a bad deal in that sector. So many oil and gas assets are also going to be seeing challenges. Many loans booked by banks in that sector are also going to be seeing challenges.
Yes, a lot of banks out there have already been saying that we should get ready. Most of their bottom lines are going to really look very bleak because of all the bad loans.
So in a way, it's similar to what we saw in 2008. And again, the real sector, other borrowers who are doing business in Nigeria, are also not having it, going well for them at this point. Because the way businesses failed in 2008, the same way they are failing right now. You've heard about several, companies threatening that, that they might close down very soon. The way things are going, a lot have already downsized or right-sized, as you will call it. So there are challenges here and there, and these will ultimately impact the books of banks.
Okay,
because banks provide funds or capital to these businesses.
So you say everybody should carry their cross at this time because the bad bank has said we can't take in any more debt at this time. So at the end of the day, who's going to bail out who?
Now,
it leaves us in a very sticky situation, if you like to put it that way.
Stimulus packages or bailout funds don't last forever. The U.S., in the peak of the crisis, also did their own quantitative easing, which they started tapering somewhere around 2013, 2014. Okay? It's not going to last forever. The Eurozone also, they're actually running their own bailout right now, and I don't believe that they're going to run it forever. So it's about 6 years now. AMCON was established by an act in 2010. precisely in July. This is 6 years down the line. We're not even talking about when are we going to wind down this process. And maybe
to wind down AMCON.
To wind down AMCON.
How can you wind down AMCON when the situation has not changed?
Okay, well, fine. We may insist that it's not the right time to wind it down. But winding it down is something we must be thinking about as we move on. Why? Because if you continue to, subsidize bad behavior, in the banking industry, it means that one sector of the economy will continue to be helped or supported by taxpayers' funds at the detriment of other sectors of the economy. So it means that the financial system must not be encouraged. When you talk about, continuing to carry their cross for them, issues around moral hazard comes in. Issues around, promoting, or how do I put it, subsidizing bad behavior in the financial sector comes in. So it means that banks might get all the more aggressive in risk-taking, taking any kind of risk, knowing that someday somebody will buy it off them.
But then you see, the banks have consistently, since the Central Bank of Nigeria, gave them a go-ahead, published the names of delinquent loan defaulters. Some of these ones have actually been gone after by AMCON. But then, in line with what you've just said and what I've just added, how can the financial services sector now prevent a further build-up of these bad loans and ease the pressure on AMCON?
So many issues come in here, and I hope I'll have a little time to share some insights on them. First and foremost, here, in this studio some time ago, I mentioned that the name and shame strategy wasn't, for me, a best strategy. Okay? Those who are, horrible or bad borrowers, they don't have any shame. And it's playing out right now. Even AMCON has complained that despite the name and shame, those who are, are carrying out some of the, toughest or the tainted or the worst kinds of loans in this industry are not showing up. And that's what you will see. I have been in court several times to defend bad debts. And the kind of things customers say in court, oh, I never borrowed for this bank. Oh, I finished paying them long ago. Look at the books. And they try to confuse judges. And our judges, sorry to say, are not so well trained in financial matters. And sometimes they don't understand the languages that banks and their customers speak in the court in terms of how the bank's books are kept. So for me, to deal with this issue, first and foremost, we must begin to look at a risk-based approach to managing banks' credit portfolios. So, the central bank and all other authorities, that's regulatory authorities, or supervisory authorities, must begin to look closely at how banks run their businesses. First, do you have a proper, well-defined credit policy guide? What criteria do you use in accepting to fund a customer? How do you assess loans? Or are you doing that just based on, the fact that you have a security that you may not even touch at the end of the day? How do you give loans? How well trained are your lending officers? And I'm a trainer, and every time you get into a room for so many banks, you find the dearth of knowledge in terms of how you structure credit, loan structuring, and then restructuring. And then the approval process, how is it in our bank? Is it a defined process that no matter who is involved, whether it is the brother or the president of the Republic of Nigeria or the mother or friend of the managing director of this bank, that we follow a proper process to approve this loan?
Whose responsibility is it to ensure that we follow those proper processes that you've just mentioned?
And ultimately, issues around risk management is the responsibility of the board of any bank. The board, carries all of that on their shoulder. Okay. And the board must ensure that everybody, from that board to the last person in the bank, understands how risks are taken in the institution. Risks are identified, assessed, mitigated and controlled, and then managed over time.
But then all these banks have risk departments, don't they?
They do. But so, I'm saying how well, are risks managed despite these departments. These are issues that, I'm enterprise risk management trainer. You find that we have all these frameworks. We have, things written down, but we're not following them. So you come back to issue of governance, bad leadership, and poor monitoring and supervision. So banks must begin to do things right. Train your employees. Make sure you update your skills, that they have ability to understand the macroeconomic factors and issues that affect credits. And you cannot deal with your credit in isolation of the flow in the economy. You must understand what's happening and also be able to forecast. Before now, when banks, after the debts were bought, from them and things appeared normal, no bank ever thought that oil prices might slump again sooner than later, even though there were predictions to that direction. And we continue to also hold ourselves out to a lot of oil and gas assets. And it's playing out again today that those assets are going bad. So AMCON can only do so much. They can't continue to buy bad debts. They are already at above 5 trillion. That's about the size of our annual budget, which if we have to pay as a nation, it may take up to 10 years for us to pay, looking at our constrained fiscal positions. So again, if they buy more, they will continue to buy more and more. So what are you doing now? You're more like ensuring, bad behavior in the financial sector.
So going forward now, and to ensure that we do not encourage the insurance of more bad behavior, what should be done? AMCON has already stated its position.
AMCON is already having their own challenge. In fact, I have some fears about whether they will make more progress or succeed in getting these monies back. In the past 6 years, they have done about 40% thereabouts in recovering these debts. I'm afraid that, the way AMCON is structured, they have only about, 2 or 3 branches around the world, around the country, and they are dealing with, borrowers who are scattered all over the country. Are they able to monitor these loans, make interventions, with this, have meetings with this customer on a regular basis? Loan recovery is not just about I foreclose on security or realize collateral, or we meet in court. The judicial system in Nigeria is a problem too, because it's a slow process. So I recommend that there must be a clear definition of the courts that can deal with these issues. If possible, let's find a way to establish special courts, special commercial or financial courts that will deal with this bad debt, so that AMCON can have expedited judicial process or proceeding. Because customers get in there, and the MD has just complained that you get into court, people are doing all kinds of tactics. They call it conja, legal process, seeking for adjournment. I have a lot of diarrhea, I couldn't come to court, please give me another date. All kinds of issues, delay tactics by these bad borrowers. So that special court must be instituted, and as I said, banks must begin to train their people, get more careful with the way they lend, and not just focus on lending to those juicy sectors, but how can you look at all the sectors, balance your portfolio risk properly, and ensure that your loan book is not so pro-cyclical, so that once the economy goes down, you go down as a bank.
Ojude Muzue, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning and sharing your perspectives with us.
Thank you very much.